All right, guys. Thanks for jumping on the call. Such a short notice. I sent this out to just a handful of people, and couple couple weren't able to make it due to the short notice. But I just wanted to give you guys just a bombshell topic, and to a couple people that are on the call, you guys have kind of heard me drop some hints about what I'm going to talk about here tonight. And I'm just super, super excited to share this with you guys. Just give me one more second here. Just give me a couple seconds, and we'll get started. All right, everybody. What I wanted to talk about, the topic is, it's not something that I figured out on my own, okay? It's something that I learned just from reading a book, okay? I did hear somebody talk about this before, and it was really intriguing to me, and I went and bought the audiobook. If you've known me for a while, you'll know that when I'm going in between appointments, traveling to my territory, whatever, my free time, I spend a lot of time listening to audiobooks. Warren Buffett said the more you learn, the more you earn, right? And so definitely took that to heart, and it's crazy what kind of nuggets are in books that people don't know, right? And so what the topic is, it's about the 7 psychological triggers, okay, of influence. All right. So to kind of summarize it, to kind of lay the foundation for you guys, okay. And I do want to say before I get started that I wish that I would have known all of this that I'm about to tell you guys, years ago. Okay, when I first got into sales, I didn't have somebody that was like, hey, here's some, actual scientific evidence. This is what the scientists say, about persuading people, right? Super valuable information. And all I had was really, just go out there and you'll kind of get beat up a little bit, but you'll figure it out, with enough practice, right? And just think about it. There's scientists that have figured out several things with sales, and I'm going to share that with you guys today. But to lay the foundation, so there's 7 psychological triggers, and with every species, there's different triggers. Okay, and what a trigger is, it's an action. It's something that happens. Either it's a sound, or it's an action, something that visually happens, and when it happens, it's a trigger that it's something that whatever species it is, it has to act. It has to act. For example, a mother turkey. Okay, when there's several different cheeps, I guess you could say, that the chicks will make towards a mother turkey to communicate, right? And scientists have discovered that there's a certain cheep sound that they make when they're hungry, right? And so what the scientists did, they did a scientific study, and the mother turkey they made they just had a speaker that makes the cheep sheep sound, and the mother turkey just automatically every single time started kind of protecting and wanted to make that speaker, one of its own, right? Try to feeding it, see what it needs, right? And so that was one study every time, right? So the second study was, let's see how far this will go, to what extent. And what they did was they put them with the mother turkey. What they did is they put a cougar up to it, and the mother turkey was just like going ballistic, like trying to defend, the chicks from the cougar. And then what they did was they put a speaker on the cougar, and they did the same thing. They put the cougar in with the turkey, and she started going crazy, defending, and you understand. And it was interesting. They pressed the play button, and they started playing the cheap sound that I was talking about. And guess what? The mother turkey accepted the cougar as its own, and started treating it like one of her chicks. So even though the cougar, and obviously it was a replica, right? It wasn't a real one, but seconds before it was going ballistic, trying to attack it, and then because of that trigger, that's how powerful it is psychologically. Because of that trigger, it just had to act. Okay. And now the first one that I want to talk about, it's called contrast. Okay. Now, humans perceive things that are presented one after another differently than those presented in isolation, right? And so you guys ever been to a lot of retail clothing stores like JCPenney's? Out here, I guess more popular would be like Macy's, right? You go into Macy's, and they always have like these ridiculous prices. Like, let's say on a men's shirt, they'll have the price of like, originally $50, $49.99, right? And everybody knows they're never gonna really sell it to you for $50, right? But it says, oh, we got the sale going on. It was originally $50, but now it's $29.99. And even though that's kind of little high for a shirt, but guess what? Because of the contrast principle, it looks a lot more competitive. It looks a lot better of a deal. All right. Another example, real estate companies, what they do is they kind of set up dummy properties, which are more expensive and a lot of times run down also, in order to kind of lower customers' expectations so that later on, when they see a real house, it looks a lot nicer and a lot more attractive to them. Happened to my sister, and she loves her house. She doesn't care. But she was telling me this story. She contacted this real estate agent, and she's like, man, right when I contacted this guy, I just knew he was going to sell me something. And so the first house that he took her and her husband to, all they could tell me about it was just run down, and they're just talking about the flies. There's just dead flies everywhere. They were just like, why is this guy showing us this house? And then he took them to a house that they actually were kind of looking for. It fits their parameters and everything. It was newly remodeled and had the nice grass and blah 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 blah. And guess what? They ended up buying it on the spot. They ended up closing on it shortly after, and they were signing the papers right there, because of the contrast principle. All right. Automobile dealers, they negotiate a new car's price first before suggesting add-ons, right, because of contrast. Second trigger here, and by the way, guys, I want you guys to feel free to make any comments, ask any questions, things like that. Oh, and also what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of plug in how this relates to final expense sales specifically, how I integrate this with the presentation that I teach, okay? And almost forgot the contrast principle. So I guess the main area that I bring this in would be when I'm showing people numbers, okay? A lot of different agencies out there, seems like pretty much everyone that I've ever seen, they will teach agents to show 3 options, okay? And what I teach is show just 2 options. Why? Because it's a lot easier for someone to be able to make a decision if there's less options, right? And so in order to contrast, obviously before we present them numbers, we get their budget, right? Let's say they're willing to set aside $40 to $50 every month, right? And what I do is I show them a plan that's $120 a month. And I show that one first, and I write it down on a piece of paper, explain the plan, and I tear it off and throw it in front of them. That's your first option. Guess what? A lot of times people like flip it over, they kind of like scoot it away, stuff like that. It's like the sticker shock, right? And then what do? I show them a plan that's right within their budget, right, 40 to 50 bucks. Okay? And guess what happens? Right when I place it down, and which one do you think makes the most sense to you? Which one do you think they're going to choose? 99.9% of the time. Of course, they're going to choose the one that's within their budget, right? Contrast principle. All right. Second principle here is, second trigger would be reciprocation. Okay. And this rule is basically that we should always kind of repay in kind, basically what another person has done for us, like for free. As humans, we just feel like we should give something back. Okay, psychological rule here. Now, there's obviously a general distaste for people that just make no effort whatsoever to reciprocate. But, for example, when you go into someone's home, there's different rules, like you always ask them if they want water. You always ask them things like that, right? But this rule used in sales is so overpowering that even, if we don't even like someone, we can end up complying with the request, okay? And whoever just joined, if you could mute your phone, appreciate it. So examples of the reciprocation. All right, there was a charity, and what they did was they were set up like what's kind of like a kiosk in a high traffic area where people would walk by. And what they would do is they're trying to get people to donate to them. Okay, this charity had very low donations, like very, very low numbers of donations. Okay, and so what they did was they brought someone in, and they were like, "This is the plan. We're going to take these flowers, and we're going to force everybody that walks by. We're going to force them to take the flower, and we're going to give it to them for free, just to give it to everybody for free." And guess what would happen? Right when they would give the flower for free, then they'd start the conversation and everything, and then they would ask them to donate. And guess what happened? First time, they just tried to ask people to donate. Very little results. The second time, they tried it out. They gave everybody a flower. Then they asked people to donate, and they had just something like 80% more donations during a time period. Pretty awesome. Another one here. There's a politician. His name is Lyndon Johnson. And what that politician did was they were able to get a lot of bills passed because they would call in favors from the other representatives. For example, he did a lot of favors for all the different people in Congress or whatever it was, whatever house he was in. And once he was elected, all these people owed him. And so he's like, "Oh, shoot, I'm going to take advantage of this." And he just would call them and, "Hey, And because they felt so obliged, because he did something for them for free, guess what? A lot of his bills would pass, right? And after that, Jimmy Carter absolutely failed because he had no favors to call on. He didn't have the reciprocation rule. All right. That's the same reason why Costco, a lot of different grocery stores, when you go in, they give you free samples. Because when they give free samples, it's scientifically proven to increase sales. All right. And last one, this one was really, really awesome. It shows you how powerful this is, guys. In World War I, there was a German soldier that he actually crossed into no man's land to capture an enemy soldier. Okay, and he came across one of the enemy soldiers eating. It was in one of the when they would dig those ditches in World War I, and the guy that he was just sitting there eating and didn't have a gun, nothing. But the German soldier, he was armed, everything, right? And what the enemy soldier did was he offered some bread to the German soldier. The German soldier, for whatever reason, he took the bread and he ate it, And afterwards, the German soldier returned to his leaders and had to report that he just couldn't capture the guy, even though he was disarmed, surprised them, everything, because of reciprocation, right? A way that this is used in sales a lot of times, if you guys have been to the car dealership, this will kind of ring home. A way to kind of increase chances of a request being accepted, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, is to make a larger one. You make a larger request that will be likely to be turned down first. All right. And then after the refusal, you make a second request as a concession. And it's important. Obviously, you don't want to be too unreasonable. You don't want to show them a plan like $1,000 a month. Just turn them off, right? Now, another rule here is commitment and consistency. Okay. So I'm sure you guys have heard something like this, like you've heard the term green light selling, right? Where you want to get as many little yeses as you can before you get to the end and get the big yes, right? So this will be familiar to most people that have been in sales. After making a choice or taking a stand, personal and interpersonal pressures often force people to behave consistently with it. Okay, our culture values good personal consistency. So stubborn consistency allows us to avoid thinking. Once we have made up our mind, we don't have to think about it again. Okay? So once people agree to something, even though they might not really agree 100%, but because they agree with it, they're going to continue, to act like they agree with the 100%, and then all of a sudden they're signing up for a policy, right? One example here is people soliciting for charity over the phone. What they do is first they ask people how they're doing, okay? So once someone has publicly asserted that they're doing good, it's inconsistent and awkward. I like that word. It's awkward to appear stingy later when they ask for a donation. This one really, really blew my mind right here. Like, really blew my mind. During the Korean War, the Chinese communists, they would ask U.S. prisoners of war for writing that was relatively innocent. Okay? So basically what they would do is they would throw a piece of paper in front of these prisoners of war, okay? And they would ask them to write something down on a piece of paper that seems pretty innocent, okay? Like, oh, this is harmless. So the first one that they did was, I want you to write down the U.S. is not perfect. The second time, I want you to put down unemployment is not an issue in a communist country. And because they had made remarks along those lines, they kept on asking for more. They kept on going down the rabbit hole, right? And to stay consistent, many went to the extent of becoming a collaborator, okay? They went to the extreme. This is crazy. Guys, they would consistently ask for them to write worse and worse and worse and worse and worse messages over a whole span of time. And there's people that reported that during this time, they got letters from their husbands, their boyfriends, whatever, that were saying, like, that were defending the communists. And they actually believed it. Just from using the psychological trigger. It's crazy. The one main thing that I can kind of use as an example would be, and you guys will laugh. It's like when you're trying to impress a guy or trying to impress a girl, right? So when you date, you want to date somebody. You don't walk up to a girl, you don't walk up to a guy, and you don't say, "Hey, you want to get married?" The first conversation, right? First, what do? You try to befriend them a little bit, right? And then after you're kind of friends with them a little bit, then you want to kind of drop the hints of, the compliments and get that kind of going. And then after that, you want to ask for a date. And after you go on a couple dates, then you're like hanging out and blah, 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 blah. And then, all right, now I'm going to ask her to be my girlfriend. And then you slowly, one time you're going to introduce her to all your friends. And then slowly after that, you're going to introduce her to your family, and then your mom, and then your grandma. And then as time goes on, it's going to get more serious and more serious, and you're going to ask for more commitment, right? And then pretty soon, all right, I'm popping the question. I'm asking her to marry me, right? But there's levels that start, right? All the way from the beginning, right? And one thing also, fraternity houses, what they do is they exploit another extreme kind of form of commitment. What they do is a person has to go through a ton of pain. The initiation. If you ever want to kind of laugh, go online and type in fraternity initiation stories. And there's a bunch of crazy ones on there I did before. And it's just crazy what people will go through just to join like a fraternity. 20 years after they graduate, they won't even really matter, whether they were in a fraternity or not. But they go through these extremes just to be able to join. And then once they join, guess what? They value it so much, they rarely leave. Why? Because it took them so much in order to be able to join. Even external pressure from their family, from different friends, things like that, they're more likely to not leave based upon that. All right. The next rule, the next trigger, social proof. All right. You guys have seen the trend nowadays with like websites. Nowadays they're using social proof like a ton, right? What they're doing is they're constantly throwing the reviews up there. They're always, so-and-so said this about our product. So-and-so said that about our product. It's rated 5 stars out of 5 stars. Why? Because when a lot of people agree with it, then all of a sudden it makes us want to agree with it too, correct? And so obviously we view behavior as more correct, right, in a given situation to the degree that we see others when we see others performing it, right? And the more people doing it, the more the rule works and making us believe that the behavior is correct, right? And so we use behavior of people like us to determine proper behavior for ourselves, right? Main one that I could say is probably like the canned laughter, right? When you guys watch different shows on TV, it's scientifically proven that when they play the canned laughter during a funny time, scientifically proven that people laugh not only longer, but more often. And it's more effective on poor jokes too, okay? Another one, like a tip jar, right? You have a business has a tip jar. What do? They put a couple bucks in there first because they want to have the social proof. Oh, other people tip, and then people are scientifically proven to tip more, right? Goes also to the extreme of like the massacre of Jonestown, right? People followed each other to drink the poison and committed mass suicide just because everybody else was doing it. Once again, psychological trigger. It's so strong that if we use these in sales constantly throughout our presentation, which you'll see once you learn the presentation, if you haven't yet, you'll see constantly like every line of the presentation. All right, this one's social proof, right? All right, this one's consistency, right? One way that I use social proof is I like to use social proof when there's like a kind of like a pain point. That would be, for example, asking someone to get on bank draft. We don't want them to send in the bill in the mail. We don't want them to, pay it any other way than getting their bank account information. You're not going to ask someone that you just met for their bank account number, right? So what do I say? I use the social proof. Hey, everybody does it, right? What I say is All right, Miss Mary, you can have your bank send the money to the insurance company any day of the month that you prefer. Most of my clients, they do it on the same day they get their Social Security. What day do you get yours? Oh, I get mine on the 1st. Okay, all right, sign here. And it was every time. Every time. It's interesting. There's been just 2 that I can think of over the past week or week and a half. There's been 2 replacements that I've done. Both of them were a certain company that's the leader, or no, the name of the company is one of the presidents. You guys know what I'm talking about. And both of those sales, I looked at the draft date, and neither one of them was on the same day the client got paid their Social Security. But it was interesting how easy it was just by using social proof. When I signed them up, replaced that policy, just without even bucking, without nothing, they just did it. That's how powerful it is. All right. Another rule, another trigger would be liking. Okay. And this kind of goes in depth with this, and you guys will kind of notice that I like to dress up, when I'm going on appointments, even when I'm meeting agents, things like that. When I'm doing anything with business, guess what? I'm dressing up, and I'm always looking at GQ magazine. I'm always looking at the different style magazines and things like that. Why? Because I want to have the latest fashions, right? So I have my suit tailored. I got the shoes that match. I got the belt that matches. A lot of times I have the pocket square. It's just not to be cocky, but it's on point, right? And why is that? Well, it's because scientifically proven that when you have physical attractiveness, a halo effect occurs when a positive characteristic of a person kind of dominates how others view that person, right? So that's physical attractiveness, okay? Actually, what's interesting is they did a scientific study, and with school teachers always found a kid that was more attractive to be smarter than a kid that was unattractive. It's kind of sounds mean, but that's how powerful that one rule there is with liking, right? That's why I'm always getting my hair cut at least once every 2 weeks. I never just wake up and just roll out of bed and all right, I'm off to my appointment. Like, no, I'm got to make sure that I'm on point because it matters. It matters. Second one that causes liking is similarity. Okay, we like people who are like us, right? Car salesmen, they always look for cues of things like golf, right, to relate and show themselves similar to different customers, right? Lupe and Yvonne, you two new agents from San Diego, Latinas, okay? And I believe, Yvonne, you were saying that you're actually born in Mexico. And when I was talking to you guys, how did I use similarity? When I was talking to you guys the other day, when we were you were at the interview, I used similarity by, oh yeah, I was in Mexico in September. Oh, my wife is first generation Mexican American, and kind of using that similarity, right? Number 3 would be compliments. Okay, this is one I think that a lot of sleazy, salespeople, I think they use compliments like way too much. So this one can kind of backfire. If you got to kind of do it the right way. Okay, you got to kind of be creative when you compliment. One way that I do it is I had this lady earlier today, and she was kind of bragging on how her kids, one of her kids is a psychologist, and another kid, owns a business, and they're successful. They went to school, and blah 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 blah. She's kind of bragging on it. And so one way that I complimented her, like kind of low key, is I was like, oh wow, someone must must have raised them well. And by kind of doing a low key like that, it's taken as a lot better. All right. Another way that we can use liking is contact and cooperation. All right. Familiarity with someone, based upon last name, based upon appearance. Sometimes it plays a role in our decision making, right? Familiarity produced by being in contact with someone actually produces greater liking, right? And the reverse happens if the experience is competitive or distasteful, okay? I'll never forget this guy. He signed up for it was like $12 a month, this policy. It was kind of like, oh, man, all right, let me get out of here. But I'll never forget this guy. This guy is like 5 foot tall, super short, and I guess he was a jockey. He raced the horses. He was one of the guys riding on the horses in the races. And the reason I'll never forget this guy was not gonna buy. This guy was like, just for whatever reason, like he didn't even let me in his house. Like he's like, all right, just give me the information right here on the steps, And it was funny, right when I think I was giving him my business card or something, because he was acting all like, oh, who are you? You're trying to scam me. What's going on? So I gave him one of my business cards, and he's like, oh, your last name, how do you pronounce that? And I told him, and he was like, well, what origin is that? And I was like, Croatian. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah, why? He's like, oh, my ancestors are from Croatia. Oh, man, we're like brothers. Guess what? After that, it was just like pulling a U-turn. This guy just signed up like right away. It was just like kind of mind-boggling. Like, what just happened? And why was it? Because he saw that in some way I was like him, and the liking factor kicked in. What else? I don't want to breeze through this. I don't want to kind of go on the same thing. This one's kind of in-depth, but it is very important. And now, so the strength of a social bond, what's interesting, it's actually twice as likely to produce a product sale than the preference for the product itself. Okay? You ever wonder why these insurance companies have these ridiculously high prices, how they're able to keep policies on the books and stay in business? Because their agents are good at getting people to like them. All right? That's why a lot of companies, a lot of network marketing companies, right? Like Tupperware, for example. What's different about Tupperware versus all the different plastic containers that are out there on the market? Tupperware actually isn't I wouldn't even consider like a top 5. They're just not innovative. Like, I just don't know what's awesome about Tupperware, okay? But why are they such a huge company? A lot of you may not know. But it's because they're a network marketing company, and they started by what they do is, they recruit you, and then you got to write down a bunch of your friends and family's names, and then they go do a house party, and all your friends and family come, even though they don't really think it's a great product, nothing like that, nothing's awesome about it. Guess what? Because of the social bond of knowing the person, multi-billion-dollar company, right? And there's a guy named Joe Girard, and he's actually the Guinness World Record holder for the greatest salesman in the world, okay? And how he did it, and those of you that have seen my referral system, what I do is I automatically send postcards to all my clients every month, and I stole that from Joe Girard, and that's how he became the world record salesperson, by selling just hundreds and hundreds of cars every month. Why? Because of the liking rule. What he did was every month he would send all of his clients a postcard, and it would do something that would kind of trigger in their brain, like the remembrance of how much they like Joe. And like I saw a picture of one of his cars that he would send. It was like a smiley face. It's a smiley face, and then it said, "I like you!" ! And he said, like, when he would send out his cards every month, like clockwork, Just the calls will start coming in with the referrals. Crazy. Next trigger, and this is probably my favorite one. Okay, this one's extremely important with insurance sales, especially dealing with seniors. The reason is because seniors, as you guys know, guess what? Someone 65, 70 years old, they've been mass marketed. They've seen 100 TV commercials about life insurance. They've seen 100 different things in the mail about life insurance. So they're 70 years old. You just set an appointment with these people or knocked on their door, and to be able to convince them to do it right now, right? Well, why didn't they do it? You know, they've had 70 years to sign up, right? And this, I would say this is the most important, and it's authority, all right? We obey authorities mindlessly in a lot of cases, all right? We usually see an order from an authority in isolation instead of seeking the situation as a whole. What does that mean? When an authority tells you to do something, you just do it without even thinking of what you're doing. For example, a cop says, get on the ground. Guess what, people? Well, I guess not everybody nowadays, but most people, without even thinking, they're going to drop on the ground, right? And so what are a few symbols of authority that help out? Number one is titles. Someone being introduced as like a professor, scientifically proven to be seen taller by students than someone being introduced as like a graduate student, all right? And this is number two, and this is why I wear a suit, okay? Number two is clothes and other outward appearances actually make people see you as an authority. For example, wearing a suit. They did a study where they had a guy walk across the street. They had him jaywalk, I believe it was like in New York City. They had this guy just walk across the street illegally. And they counted the amount of people that followed this guy across the street. And he was just wearing normal clothes, okay? And then they had him do it again when he was wearing a suit. And guess what? Significantly more people followed him when he was wearing a suit. Extremely interesting. Motorists will actually wait longer before honking at a new luxury car, like at a stoplight and turn green. They will wait longer to honk at a new luxury car versus an older, rugged down car. Why? Because of appearance, people see it as authority. Okay. How do I use this in insurance sales, final expense? I already talked about the how I dress. Okay. Another way, and John will tell you stories about this. Kind of crazy, you know, once I think about it. But once I get inside the home, guess what I do? After I shake their hand, introduce myself, look them in the eye. Yeah, if we could go ahead and make our way to the table over here, that'd be great. And I walk around the client that I just met for the first time. I'll walk around these people like I'm the boss, like I own this house that they live in. I'll walk around them, walk through them, whatever, and I just walk to their table, and I sit. I'll sit where the leader of the family usually will sit. You know, the head of the table. I'm the boss. Pull out the table and I just sit down. And guess what they do? They follow me over. That's number one. And number two, I tell people to go ahead. If you have a list of the medications, or if you go ahead and grab the bottles for me quick, that'd be great. I tell them to go grab the bottles or a list. They get up without thinking. They automatically just get up and they go find their bottles or they go find their list. They come back. The third thing that I do in the appointment that I teach people to do is after I got everything down, before I make the presentation, I tell them to grab me a bottle of water. Obviously, you don't want to sound like a jerk, but the way I say it is, you mind if I bother you for a bottle of water? And every time they're always like, oh, I'm sorry. They're like apologizing, like, oh, and I'm just like, yep, got him. And they get up, and a lot of times I'll be like, oh, actually, and when they get to the fridge, oh, do you have Do you have a warm one? I prefer warm ones. Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. They'll go into the garage. They just go out of their way, to get me what I asked for. Why? Because they see me as an authority. And why did I have them do that 3 times? The rule of consistency that we talked about earlier. I had them do it 3 times. So at the end of the presentation, when I tell them to go ahead and grab a check, when I ask for their social, guess what? I have them in such, I'm just like firing triggers at them this whole time, right? And they're just automatically they just get up and go grab a check. They just automatically fire off their social, They just give me all the information they need. All right, sign here, sign here, sign here, right? And they just do it. Why? Because they see me as an authority. All right. The last rule here is scarcity, okay? And what this is kind of the fear of loss, okay? The thought of losing something motivates people more than the thought of gaining something of similar value, all right? So if we believe that things are difficult to own, we just automatically think that it's just better than things that are easy to own, right? Obviously, scarcity of an item just indicates that items it should be better, okay? What's one of the examples? Oh yeah, there was a couple young boys, and what they found is young boys they run for toys behind obstructions other than the one lying in front of them. If you ever watch little kids, you'll notice that for some reason all the kids want the toys that the other kids have. There's like 200 toys sitting 5 feet from them in a big toy chest. But they want the one that their brother has or their sister has because of scarcity, right? What else? We value banned information more valuable. A lot of times what they do is to popularize certain views. It's better to get them censored and then publicize the censorship. Parents who enforce discipline and consistently produce rebellious children, they allow leeway on occasions and then take it back, right? Scarcity, and then this is really powerful. This is really powerful, guys. Scarcity and rivalry together are way more strong than just scarcity alone, okay? So if there's the fear of loss and then also some type of rivalry, a type of competition, it just becomes way more strong, okay? Example, ABC lost $2 million by bidding $3.3 million for a single showing of the Poseidon Adventure. And it happened because of scarcity created by the bidding war between a couple rivals, CBS and NBC. Okay, even though it's just someone that's negotiating airtime, they know what they're doing. They're probably experienced, things like that. And guess what? Because of the scarcity and rivalry, they paid way too much for this airtime and they lost money. Right? How do I use scarcity in final expense sales? One way I use scarcity is it's kind of like the takeaway, okay? I don't just kind of act like, oh, well, you know what? Like, it's okay that you're really sick and, you got all these medical conditions. I can get anybody approved. I mean, that is true. We do have guaranteed issue products. But I'm not going to tell people that, okay? So if people kind of ask me, what I say is, oh, well, I'm not really sure, but we'll definitely find out, And one line that I use in every appointment when I teach agents to kind of say is, once they choose an option, remember I show them one option that's way over their budget, and I show them one option that's right within their budget. Every time they're going to choose the one that's right within their budget without thinking, okay? Right when they choose it, I think it was kind of funny. John was just cracking up when he saw me do this. They choose the one that's within their budget, right? And right away, what I say is, well, Miss Mary, neither one of these plans will be available to you at this very moment, so you can't have them. And I pick up both pieces of paper, and I shuffle them together. It's like a 5-second pause. I put them back, nice, neat pile in front of me, close my thing, and I turn and look at them, and their look on their face is just kind of like, what? They're just like completely threw off guard. Like, I can't have it, you know? And I've had people like they ask like, well, why not? You know, well, what do I got to do? You know? And I'll just kind of go over it again. Neither one of these plans would be available to you at this very moment, so you can't have it. All right? Because first we'd have to see if you could qualify. All right? Now, in order to see if you can qualify, I just have to ask you some additional medical questions. And just make sure you 100% tell the truth, because if you lie and then you die, insurance company doesn't have to pay. Then go ahead and grab your ID for me quick, just so I know that the real you ain't tied up in the closet back there and you're trying to cash out, right? And I just use the scarcity, like, you can't have it. And it just makes people want it so much more. So a lot of agents, it's just like, it's crazy. A lot of agents, they kind of struggle with the transition. I've seen this in other sales industries too. People know the client that you're pitching. They know when you're about to get down to, actually making the commitment. And there's always that like, oh, shoot, oh, no, it's right now, right? In other industry, it was you'd have to bring someone to the computer, to sign them up and get their credit card out. Another industry I was in, kind of like insurance, you had to pull out the application and get them to give you your social and everything like that. So by using scarcity, the hardest part of the sale, transitioning to the application, getting their social, getting their bank account, blah, 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 using scarcity, and they're like, just like sitting there like, man, I want this so bad. Am I going to qualify? Am I going to qualify? And we never tell them if they qualify or not until the very end. It's like, oh, congratulations, you were approved. And people are just like so happy, like, yes, I almost didn't have it, but I got it, right? when this is my final kind of story, and this will wrap it up. I actually used a lot of these principles with my wife, convincing her to marry me, and I use scarcity by when we first started.
Now that's the sale right there.
That's a major sale, brother. But no, it's funny.
Do you want to get married Wednesday night at 5, or would Thursday morning be better for you?
But first I have to see if you can qualify. No, but I use the scarcity by we were talking. I got her to like me, and stuff like that. This is before I even met her face to face, because I live in Northern California, she lives in Southern California, and I was kind of getting to know her, asking her questions, and she answered one of my questions in a way that I didn't like it. So guess what I did? I'm the authority, right? I'm going to use scarcity. Guess what? You almost didn't have this. I stopped talking to her. I didn't tell her I was going to stop talking to her. I just abruptly stopped talking to her for, I think it was over 30 days. Just randomly. And then guess what? I started talking to her again. And within a week, I asked to meet up with her. And because she almost didn't have this, I'm just kidding, I got her closer to the sale, right? I was able to meet her face to face and, things like that, and we're married now. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
so she settled for the graded plan and took you.
Something like that. So, yeah, I hope this was kind of eye-opening for some of you. For most salespeople, let's be honest, a lot of these principles are we've seen other salespeople use. A lot of these principles we kind of read about in a different way, probably before in different sales books. But this is the first time I ever had when I read this book. This is the first time I ever had it like broken down. Like this is actual like scientific data. It's the first time I ever had it broken down like that. And that it just kind of blew my mind. And after I learned, right, I just started using it so much more. And because it's important, you got to do things with purpose, on purpose, right? It's one thing to know something. A lot of people know a lot of stuff, right? But those that take action, they're going to have the results. They're going to see the fruits, right? So all of you that are on the call right now, everything that I just talked about, okay, you can do one of two things. You can take it all, whatever. You're going to forget about it in a couple weeks. Or you took some notes, you took this to heart, you're going to text me, you're going to call me after this, ask for the book name, you're going to buy the book, buy the audio, whatever, and you're going to read it. And guess what? You're going to consciously use these in your sales presentation with purpose, on purpose. And guess what? You're going to walk into homes, and these people are already going to have policies. Because you're the boss, they like you, they see you as an authority, the scarcity, all this just repetitively during the presentation. Without question. You'll have people just cancel all of their policies and you're just going to be able to capture all the premium. And it's going to be one big paycheck. You're going to do things that other agents couldn't do. You're going to get people on draft. I've had people straight up like, oh, I never give out my bank account information. And I'll look them in the eye and be like, okay, yeah, if you could go ahead and part of the application, if you, all I ask is just avoid a check. Go ahead and take this pin and write void on one of your checks. And that's it. Even though they just told me 1 second ago that they never do this, I just look them in the eye and just tell them to do it, and they get up and do it. And I'm just like thinking in my head, like, dude, this is so awkward. Like, do they understand what's going on right now? Like, I had this guy one time. He was like, oh, I never give out my bank account information. I just never do that. I told him he didn't have any checks either. And so I was like, oh, you have a bank account statement? Oh, why do you need that? Oh, because for the bank account number. He got up, grabbed the statement, and gave it to me. Like, yeah, there's a lot of scammers out here. It's just crazy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and what's your social? And it's like, without even thinking, he's like, 555, blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Kind of sometimes with knowing this, it's like I feel like Spider-Man or something. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So wanted to end the call. Does anybody have any comments? Does anybody have any words of encouragement, anything like that? Go ahead. Cricket. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys jumping on the call with such a small window of advancement. And, yeah, be blessed and be great. I'm always available to you guys. Feel free to reach out. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The starving child gets fed. All right. Always available to those that want and need it. All right. You guys have a good night. Take care.